Well, hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am super excited to introduce my coach, my friend, Matthew Sutter. Matthew and I have been working together for a lot of years, Matthew, and you've been a blessing in my life. Matthew has been coaching me for like a long time, 6, 7, 8 years. I can't even, I can't count, but you have been a major blessing in my life, a coach, a mentor, a friend. We've grown together spiritually. God has just really used you in some great ways. And I mean every bit of that. So, hey, thanks so much for being on today, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Brian, it's truly my pleasure. It's awesome to get to do this with you. And yeah, we've had such a long relationship, both personally and professionally. And I mean, it's kind of blended into both of those. And, I never talk about having favorite clients. And I can also say you are absolutely in that realm and you always have been. I love working with you.
Same here, man. I appreciate that very much. So let's just go through a few things, Matthew, because I want to tap into your wisdom, into your experience. I know you've got a lot to offer people that are watching this. So you've been a coach to some of the top agents in the industry and an international speaker for nearly 15 years. Was that something you intentionally set out to do? I mean, is that what you envisioned when you were maybe growing up as a kid?
um, uh, Brian, if you had told me at any time earlier in my life that this is what I'd be doing on a regular basis, it would have never even crossed my mind. I mean, you know how God works, right? We go off on on a path that we think is the right path, and then He has different plans for us. And thankfully for his provision and His wisdom, He redirects us and reorients us. I had no idea I would be here, and yet at the same time, what's really cool is it's been clear to me that this is actually what my purpose was. And so because of that, like working with guys like you and being able to pour into other people, like that feels so in alignment with my purpose. And so it's really a wonderful thing.
So when you say purpose, that's a big word, and it's kind of unpack that a little bit. When you say coaching and speaking as your purpose, can you explain a little bit more about that? Maybe what that looks like for you?
Yeah, definitely. Uh, I've had the great fortune, and I really mean this, and part of it's a product of being in the industry for so long and seeing a lot of different circumstances, a lot of different market cycles. I've been very blessed to really get to speak, some of the largest of, real estate events, kind of consistently across the country. I've had the pleasure of working with great agents like yourself. I mean, just in the past few years, I've had really the honor of coaching and consulting and training 27 of the top 100 agents in the country, which is just beyond my wildest dreams to be able to have conversations with truly the best of the best. And where God has really taken me in this journey is a heart for believers that are pursuing a career in real estate. This is you, Brian. Right? Because we've had so many conversations. This is an industry where it is really easy to lose perspective and to lose sight of what we're doing. And so for me, I talk a lot about purpose. So I said, for me, my purpose is in the speaking and coaching realm. Yet what I love to do is to get to work with guys like you, helping you tap into your purpose for what you're looking to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Matthew, I've seen that the last couple of years, the kind of the purpose with believers and speaking to non-believers and believers, absolutely. But it kind of hone in, as we have talked more about as believers, to where God is kind of calling you to that space. So that's exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. I'm honored. And Brian, here's the cool thing. And this has been a big shift for me. And you and I have had these conversations before. I grew up really with a lot of baggage around making money. And unlike, a typical career path where you have a salary and it's a defined income, and in our industry, right, your income is unlimited. And for me, that was always a bit uncomfortable because I grew up, I think like a lot of believers, of course we grew up with the adage that the love of money is the root of all evil. And yet I think a lot of people are like me in that even though we understand the love of money is different than money, it's hard not to associate the two. And for me, I grew up uncomfortable about it, and it took me really years and years and years until I think God really opened my eyes, and he said, well, Matt, what if making money in your career was actually a conduit to growing the kingdom? And so
Yeah.
where I become really passionate about working with believers is because I believe in our industry, we are the conduit to be able to create income that can then be used to fund missions, to fund church initiatives, to seed churches, all of
Yeah.
these great things. And that's really unlocked for me and a lot of the clients I work with, that's really unlocked the vision of, well, let's go build something great, not for our ego, not because it makes us rich, but because it actually allows us to honor God.
Yes. Amen. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, it's how we steward it, right? It's just how
That's
we
right.
steward it. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, so speaking and coaching, I know they're very different, right? And so you and I have had so many great coaching conversations, and yet I know you're out there speaking to so many different audiences and really training and helping, real estate professions. You've trained in our office before, my former office, and just you've done some great things for agents. So when it comes to coaching, what is it that you think makes like a great business coach, especially from a faith perspective?
Yeah. I love coaching and I love speaking, and they're very different. At the end of the day, the beauty of coaching is you get to meet someone right where they are.
Hmm.
And I love that idea. A lot of times, when I think of speaking, it's kind of like the idea of a speaker's job is to help kind of speak from the top of the mountain and say, "Hey, it's great up here. Come on up." But the difference with coaching is that you actually get to walk up the mountain with that person side by side, and so there's a great level of intimacy and collaboration and kind of um, uh, mutual work together to get up. And one of the coolest things I think about coaching, especially coaching believers, is
Hmm.
we can be aligned in the purpose. See,
Yes.
I'm really driven. Like Brian, I love when you crush it. I love it when you have great
Hmm.
years. I
Hmm.
mean, listen, you and I know this. The audience may not know
Hmm.
it. You continue to outpace the market.
Hmm.
When I look at
Hmm.
last year and I look at this year, on most of our conversations, we talk about, hey, the average agent, they're way down, and yet you continue to be way up. And
Yeah.
that's such like a joy for me because I know that as you continue to build income, you're a great steward of your money, and you and your wife are very intentional on how you're doing it. And I get my kicks out of that, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's because you care. That's because you care. And I always tell you this whenever I tell you once in a while, because it's not like I show my months all the time to you. Say, Matt, you were a part of this. I just iconed again for my third straight year with our company. You're a big part of this. You're part of the reason that I'm able to do what I'm able to do. And you, man, I'll tell you another conversation for another time, but you helped transform my business when you helped me to finally get lead generation, how important it is, the disciplines, everything. I think it's been 3 or 4 years. It's been a game changer, but that's another conversation for another time. So,
Yeah,
um,
no, and definitely. But the point I'd say to that, right, is that you had to make the commitment. So a
mhm.
coach can't do the work for the client. Um, and we were able to work together to figure out a vision for how you run your business or how you were going to do your lead generation. But you had to do it. And here's kind of like, if you don't mind, this is just kind of coming to
Yeah,
top of mind
please.
here to think
Mhm.
about this. Is that at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, and you're an entrepreneur, probably most of the people listening to this are entrepreneurs, right? Real estate agents, by definition, are entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And we're all trying to build something, hopefully, from our purposes, hopefully it's a conduit to grow the kingdom. But even outside of the faith-based space, at the end of the
Mhm.
day, we're creating a vision for where we want our business and ultimately our life to go. And it's way off into the future. And, the analogy that I keep thinking of, and I've kind of been playing with a lot over the years is, think back to when we launched a rocket and landed a man on the moon.
Mhm.
It was 1969, and I did some research several years ago because I found it fascinating. But the moon is 239,000 miles away.
Dang.
And think about
Wow.
this, 1969, right? So we have 1960s technology,
Hmm.
And somehow we were able to orient a rocket ship 239,000 miles to land on a relatively, considering the distance, a relatively small body. And the
Mm-hmm.
more research I did, you'll get a kick out of this, Brian. Um, the best analogy I can give to kind of describe how monumental and challenging this was it would be similar to, like, if I took this pen. So I got a pen here. If you can't see the video, I've got a pen in my hand, and literally just a
Mm-hmm.
regular ballpoint pen. But landing, especially with 1960s technology, landing the moon, rocket on the moon would have been very similar to me taking this pen up to the top of the Empire State Building, and from the very top balcony, dropping this pen and perfectly hitting a point on the ground that is so small that even if I was standing on the ground, the point would be naked to the visible eye.
Right.
That is, in essence, what we're trying to accomplish. We're building long-term businesses. You've been in the business for a long time, and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to power forward. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
going great distances. And here's my point, is that at the end of the day, you've got to fly the rocket ship. You've
Yeah.
got to be the one that lands
Mm.
it. But at the end
Right.
of the day, my job is to help you stay course corrected
Yes.
so that you hit the target. And I'll wrap it up with this, because
That's good.
this is what blew my mind, Brian, is that in 1969, in that journey of 239,000 miles, you can
Mm.
imagine that it would take extraordinary precision to be able to land the rocket all the way that distance onto the moon. But here's the crazy thing, Brian, did you know that during its journey, the Apollo rocket was on course to its target
Okay.
only 3% of its
Hmm.
journey? It was
Wow.
actually off course 97% of the time.
Wow.
And
Mm.
so how did they
That's
get there?
good.
Well, the technology allowed it to course correct. So in other
Yes.
words, the computer couldn't stay perfectly oriented with staying straight, but it could detect anytime it was off, and it would course correct. That's what a coach does. The
Yes.
client's driving the rocket, but the coach is the computer that's helping to point out when you're getting off course. Does that make sense?
That's good. Oh, that's so good, because you do that too. I'll get on and say, Matt, I was kind of weak in this area, and you help course correct me. And then some. You do this very well. And as an agent, I'm like, okay, he's making me dig deep. Which actually, this is amazing. You'll ask me more questions, and I'm like, because nobody asked me those questions during the week, right? So you're my
Yeah,
coach, you're helping, and you're
sure.
drawing it out of me. Sometimes I want you to answer for me. You're like, Brian, I'm not going to answer for you.
I'm
You're going
not.
to dig it out of you. Because really your answer may not be my answer, right? So you're bringing it out of me, which you continue to do that as a coach, which is the reason you continue just to up my game every year. Thank the
Yeah,
Lord.
and the other thing in that, right? I love that you pointed that out, because I think there's a lot of times there's a misunderstanding between, let's say, coaching and consulting, and the major difference is consulting is coming in and telling someone how to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. By the way, in
Mhm.
certain instances, that can be very valuable. But the
Yes.
problem is when you give someone the answer, they don't actually learn how to grow from it. They just implement
Mm.
it, right? It's the whole idea of if you can give a man a fish, or you can teach a man a fish. Coaching
Mm.
is teaching someone how to fish. And so if we
Mhm.
go back to that rocket ship analogy, you're the pilot. And if I tell you the answer, or if somebody else tells you the answer, you may be able to navigate an obstacle in that moment, but you didn't necessarily learn what you would need to do next time you face a similar obstacle. With
That's good.
coaching, the idea is, okay, Brian, you're a great pilot already, and I want you to come up with the answer. My job is to guide you so you're calibrated correctly, but I want you to come up with the answer, because 3 years down the road, you may face an obstacle that's somewhat similar, and now you're going to actually know how to navigate it yourself. Does that make
That's
sense?
good.
That's the
Yeah,
difference.
that's good. Yeah, I own it now because I've done it before. The experience. Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
right.
that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's great. So as you look at real estate agents, both believers and non-believers, what are some of the biggest struggles? And it's 2025, right? So it's been quite a year for all of us.
Yes, it
And
has.
but what are some of the biggest struggles as you speak to other agents? And I ask you this all the time because I like to know what the industry is thinking too. But what are most agents like going, Matt, I'm struggling with this. How can I have success? I mean, what are you seeing in the marketplace today?
Yeah, I mean, and today is such a great indication for how I would answer it the same way, really, any point in the market, but it's extraordinarily true today. Is that we typically think of of trying to get to an end destination. We typically think of we're going to make these really long, monumental strides that will eventually get us to our destination. And the truth is, getting to our destination is really a series of baby steps. And guess what? Sometimes those baby steps are actually backwards. Like
Hmm.
one of the biggest myths when it comes to building any business is that what you're shooting for is this idea of climbing the mountain one step up, 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 and it's never that.
Right.
Best case scenario, Brian, it's two steps
Hmm.
forward, one step back.
Hmm.
But here's what I want agents that are pursuing something of magnitude to understand is that two steps forward, one steps back still eventually gets you up the mountain.
That's
And
good.
most of us get so hung up in the step back as if that is some sort of cataclysmic failure that we
Hmm.
dwell in that space rather than just focusing on the next two steps forward. But
Good.
here's the next piece I'd throw with that, Brian, that hopefully is helpful, is that we have to recognize that a lot of times when we make that step back, it's only because we had never been as far as we had ever been before from all the steps forward. In other
Yeah.
words, when we get our business to a certain level that we've never been at, how could we possibly know exactly how to handle it all? We've never done
Right.
it before. And
Yes.
so that step back may feel like failure, but actually it's a great victory because you couldn't have even had the step back if you hadn't gotten as high as you had to begin with. So great, you get to a certain level, you take a step back because you don't know exactly what to do, you figure it
Yeah.
out, and now you take your next two steps forward. And guess what? You've never been to that space either. And
Yeah.
that's what success looks like over the long term. And if there's one piece of advice I could give really for any entrepreneur, it's to
Yeah.
go in with that mindset.
Yeah. Because it is a mindset, right? You've got to start with that mindset and not
Yeah.
having a victim mentality and not feeling defeated. But like you said, look at the progress you're making.
Or to feel like you're failing. And to use a different analogy, think about running a marathon. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're building a business, Brian, you're running a marathon, and there are points where if you wanted to prioritize certain things or focus on certain things, you could get into a sprint. Like if you and I, Brian, we just came up with an idea to maximize your production within a very short time period, we could
Mhm.
probably break a record for you. I have no doubt you're capable of it.
Right.
But in doing that, what would happen is probably a lot of other things would fall apart. And so after we get past that phase, we may actually not have much business on the other side because we hadn't been developing it.
Yeah.
And so what happens as real estate agents is a lot of times we're running our marathon and we're so busy looking where everybody else is on their
Yeah.
race and forgetting that when the Boston Marathon goes on, nobody remembers who was in first place after the first or second mile. The only person that gets celebrated is the person that crosses the finish line first.
Mm.
And
It's good.
that's why we've got to keep our eyes focused on the finish line, not so worried about where we are at any point during the race.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And part of being a Boston Marathon winner is habits and discipline. So I want to ask you about habits in just a second, but I do want to tell this quick story. I remember when, as you continue to help me develop habits and discipline and lead generation, we were talking about, I said, well, Matt, I don't know when I can do it and how I can go about it. And 9 to 11 is when I'm lead generating right now. And I remember I had all these things that were bumping into my mornings, 10 o'clock, 10:30 to all the time. And you said, Brian, why are you doing that? I said, well, I need to go. He goes, and you explained to me, that's your lead generation time. You already have an appointment. You tell them no, and you move the appointment. And I'm like, I can do that? You said, yes, you can do that. You need to, because those people that won't work with you like that anyways aren't your people.
Yeah.
Right. And so now I realize that is a time block, a discipline, a habit that I have no matter what. And it's been part of the transformation and life change. So maybe talk about habits and disciplines. I know that's one that's been huge in my career.
Yeah, and it's again a testament to you, Brian, because you were the one that was willing to make the shift. And when we make shifts, especially when we break other habits, whether they're good or bad, when we break them, it's actually very uncomfortable. So there's a few things I'd say. One, I've always admired the fact that you were willing to step into a space that wasn't necessarily your preference, right? And we've talked about this before, and I don't want to go too deep into this for this group, but you're a super high I for those people that are familiar with the
Hmm.
desk. And what do high I's typically? Hey, it's routine, right?
Yeah.
High I's kind of want to be able to just do their thing in the moment.
Yep.
They got a lot of energy behind it.
Woo! We're all over
Yeah,
the place,
that's
kind of
right.
sometimes you're like, yeah.
Yeah. So we had to get kind of clarity on, well, what was going to be the habit that you were going to create that was going to make sure that you would continue to have these accelerating years that you're having. Again, you just continue. I mean, it is absolutely testament to God's grace and his glory, and you have done the
Yes.
work. That is why you're outpacing so many other agents across the country, and you're way outpacing the market. But it's
Appreciate
things
it.
like building the habits. And
Mhm.
when it comes to habit building, this is something I've just spent so much time studying because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings around building habits. So there's a few things I would say. The first is one of the great myths about habits is that they require a lot of discipline. And the truth is, habits don't actually require any discipline. Building the habit is what requires the discipline.
Mm.
Once the habit's maintained, it actually feels very uncomfortable when you don't do it. So, Brian,
Mhm.
you and I are both pretty habitual around our workouts, right? We have
Yes.
most days we're in the
Uh-huh.
gym. And I don't know, Brian, how do you feel when you miss a day that you would have anticipated working out?
My mood is not as good. I'm off. I just feel like I need to go do something. I'm irritable, not irritable, but I mean, I'm just my energy level's down. I'm out of my routine, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't feel good
Yeah. Because
mentally,
that habit.
physically, everything.
Exactly, because that habit's so ingrained because you've been doing this for years that it doesn't take you discipline to go to the gym. It's actually really off-putting when you don't go. But contrast that to somebody, you or I, when we were starting going to the gym consistently. How much harder was it, or how much more discipline did it take to go?
Hmm. It was
You-
a
you-
lot
you-
different. Yeah.
a lot
Yes.
different, yeah. So the first thing to understand about habits is it doesn't actually take discipline once you have the habit. It takes discipline to build the habit. So that's the first thing to understand. With that, then, the next piece to understand when it comes to habit building is to understand that when we are building habits, it actually does require discipline. So what we really want to focus on is building one habit at a time. And I know for me, Brian, I'm sure you're the same. I know you go to various real estate conferences and you get inspired at those, right? I know
Hmm.
you've been to some great ones, right? Well,
Yes.
the normal feeling for most of us when we get inspired is we want to come back and get all these new habits into action. We're like, oh, I need to be doing this and this and this and this, right? That's the normal feeling. Would you agree with that?
Hmm. Yes. Yes. For
Yeah.
sure.
And so what happens though is we're actually setting ourselves up for failure because building habits requires discipline. If we try to build too many habits at once, we typically do not have the willpower to actually be able to carry all of them forward. So the
Mm.
best practice is really this idea of habit stacking. So it's to pick one habit, get it ingrained. And by the way, it takes a lot less than most people think. On average, habits take about 2 to 3 months before they're
Okay.
ingrained. So
Okay.
focus on one habit. Then when that's ingrained, then we stack the next one on it. In fact, here's kind of a crazy thing. You know, do you know the number one reason why most people fail at their health goals, Brian?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Number one reason. Number one reason. By the way, it's not lack of willpower. It's not laziness. The number one reason that most people fail at their health goals is because a health goal actually requires two different habits. There's the exercise goal. So in other words, calories burned. And then
Mhm.
there's the diet goal. In other words, calories consumed. And those
Mhm.
are completely separate habits. And so why
Yes.
most people fail at their health goals is because they're trying to build two completely different habits, both of which that do take a lot of discipline at the beginning, and it's too much. When you look at the research, it is actually far better to just pick one of them Pick one of them, get that ingrained, then add the next habit on. That's the idea of habit stacking. Build one habit at a time on top of each other.
I love that, because it's like the steps of a righteous man are ordered. Like, as God puts it on your heart to order it, you just do that next step, and then that next step, and then one step at a time. So I like how you simplified that.
You got it. You got it. And then the last piece I'd throw in there, and you and I've had plenty of conversations around this, at least indirectly, is, well, let me use this analogy, Brian. Be honest, not a trick question. Are you a rabid tic-tac-toe player? Do you just wake up every morning and be like, I cannot wait to get some tic-tac-toe games in?
That's probably not me, to be honest with you.
Probably not you. Not me either. In fact, my daughter, she's going to shake her head when she, because I tell this story a lot. She'll just shake her head. She's at school right now, but I'm sure when she sees it, she'll be, Dad, but my daughter, my oldest, she's 13 now. And back when she was about 5, I mean, Brian, she loved tic-tac-toe. And you have kids. What happens when you go to a restaurant and you get a kids menu? What's invariably on the back of the menu?
Everyone. It's got it.
Tic-tac-toe. That's right. And
yes, it is.
Every time
it's going to be right there. Yep. And then the parents take it from the kids and they do it once in a while. No, I'm kidding you. Yeah.
That's right. I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. When she was 5 and we'd go to dinner, that's all she wanted to do. It's just over and over and over. Tic-tac-toe, tic-tac-toe. And of course, I didn't love tic-tac-toe. I love my daughter, so I played. I didn't love the game. But she's 13 now. And do you realize she never asks to play tic-tac-toe at all anymore? Yeah. I mean, that probably doesn't surprise you, right?
Right. No. She's out of the phase, maybe, or just not as of interest or something, or
Yeah, well, here's why. Because you're right. She's out of the phase and she's lost interest. But here's why. It's because sometime between the age of 5 and 13, she realized the fatal flaw in tic-tac-toe. And the fatal flaw in tic-tac-toe is that when you have two competent players who are both paying attention, it's actually an unwinnable game. At some point, she learned, because Dad wasn't going to let her win, and at some point she got good enough, and we were both paying attention, every single game was a draw. And so why am I saying this? Well, because we have to think of habits in the same way. Tic-tac-toe is an unwinnable game. And as human beings, we actually will not play unwinnable games. We might play games where we have low chances of winning, but if we fundamentally know we cannot win, we won't do it. So as that relates to habits, especially for real estate agents, one of the biggest hangups is, when you listen to a lot of the gurus, it's, lead generate for 3 hours a day, right? I mean, that's kind of what we all grew up hearing. Yeah. And for most agents, myself included, by the way, when we hear 3 hours a day, we automatically think, I can't do that. That's an unwinnable game. And so guess what? We wind up doing 0. Because we won't even play. And so my rule of thumb when it comes to building habits is be honest with yourself and create a winnable game. For instance, Brian, I know you're way beyond this, but imagine conceptually, I walked up to a random real estate agent and I said, hey, listen, if your life depended on it, meaning you don't get to wake up tomorrow, Mr. or Miss Agent, could you lead generate for 5 minutes today? What do you think the answer is that most would give if their life depended on it?
Yes, sure. I can do 5 minutes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Occasionally I might have someone say, no, I just have to die. It's not worth it.
Right. Not even 2 minutes from those guys, right? Yeah.
That's right. No, but in all seriousness, if our life depended on it, we could do 5 minutes. And here's the reality. Is 5 minutes as good as 3 hours? Well, no, but 5 minutes is better than 0. And where I'm going with this is when we can pick habits and we can make them a winnable game, for instance, 5 minutes of lead generation every business day. Well, after 2 to 3 months of that, guess what? That 5 months isn't hard anymore. I'm not even saying you'd enjoy it, but it's not hard. And so what if I were to go to that agent and say, great, you've been doing 5 minutes, let's say for 3 months, awesome job. Can you go to 10? What's the likelihood that agent's going to, again, they may not love that they need to do 10, but what's the likelihood they can do 10?
Yes.
It goes up, right? And so think of habit progression as create winnable games, because we won't play an unwinnable game, and just build up. And here's the thing. It may take you a year or even two to get up to, let's say, an hour. And yes, again, we're not living in a la la land. An hour's not as good as 3 hours. And yet an hour is way better than zero. And it's way better than what most real estate agents are doing.
That's so good. That is so good. I hope people that are watching and listening to this can just grab that concept, because habit stacking, 5 minutes and 10 minutes and 15 is very winnable, right? And it will absolutely change and transform your real estate business and your life, no matter what you're doing. So that is great advice. I love that.
Thank you. Awesome.
We've talked about this market. Just a couple more questions, Matthew. What advice would you give agents who are experiencing this market shift that we're in right now? I was talking to an agent the other day, and he said, "Man, is it 2008 or something like that?" And we kind of laughed. And he's spending a lot of money on Zillow, which I told him I don't pay to play a whole bunch, and there's nothing wrong with people who do. Absolutely not. But he said, "Man, this is a tough shift for me." Super nice guy. But what advice would you give the agents that are experiencing this market shift, and just to kind of keep succeeding and keep their head up and keep that right mindset?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a real issue, Brian. And just in the last several months, I've been on the road so much, and interacting with literally thousands of agents. And even I think for agents like yourself who are accountable and very much not in victim mindset, it's impossible to not recognize that certain things have gotten more challenging. Now, by the way, that's not a bad thing necessarily. And it's actually not a limiting belief to say something is harder. That's not a limiting belief. For instance, if I go to the gym and I pick up a 10-pound dumbbell, and then I pick up a 20-pound dumbbell, it's not a limiting belief for me to say, hey, that 20-pound dumbbell is heavier. So I think it's okay to acknowledge that the market's gotten more challenging. But here's the thing. I think for a lot of us, and honestly, really over the past 13, 14 years, we've only experienced a market that's gone like this. And so I think a lot of us have succeeded really almost in spite of ourselves. In other words, what I mean is that we may have done a few things right, but we also may have done a few things wrong. Yet the market was so forgiving that we still did really, really well just from the few things that we did right. And the things we did wrong didn't really penalize us that much.
Right.
We're now in a market, though, where we don't have that kind of flexibility to be able to just kind of hope there's a few things that go well while some others might not. So, I think that my counsel right now is that we are at a place where we really have to recognize that there is a wild and massive difference between being active and being productive. See, most of us as real estate agents, we're wired to go do. We're active, we're busy, we come home exhausted at night. And yet active just means busy. It means we're doing things. The difference, though, productive means we're doing the right things. And I'm reminded, I'll change his name. Love the guy, a great client of mine, great former client of mine. And he tells this story. He's really, really strong, successful agent. And he tells this story from several years ago. He'd gotten to the point where his business was really growing. There was a lot of opportunity that he had kind of created, and him and his wife sat down and they made a commitment that for a period of time, he was going to really grind away. They made an agreement that he was going to be leaving early. He was going to be coming home later at night. And they said, for our family, kind of for the next phase, this makes sense for a period of time. And the one caveat to this was that, and we're going to call him Mike, not his real name, but just to protect the guilty, as I say, they agreed that Mike would be home every night to tuck their 4-year-old son into bed. So he may not be at dinner, for a few months, but he was going to be home to tuck his 4-year-old son. And so Mike tells this story of one Wednesday night, just like, most weeknights, he walks into the house and his 4-year-old son is in bed, sitting up, and, he's all bathed, he's in his PJs, and the little boy's eyes light up and he says, Daddy, you're home. And Mike, he feels lots of love. Of course, it's his 4-year-old son. It's his pride and joy. And he says, well, buddy, of course I'm home. I promised you, just like last night and just like tomorrow night, I will always be home to tuck you into bed before you go to bed. And of course, the little boy is just, filled with so much love and pride in his dad. And so in exuberance, he says, Daddy, did you sell home today? And of course, Mike, it's talking to his 4-year-old son, and you kind of the proverbial pat the kid on the head, and he says, "Oh, buddy, that's not how it works. No, Daddy didn't sell a home today." And the little boy paused and looked at Mike and said, "Then what'd you do all day?" Here's the point. We can be really, really busy. We can be really, really active. But at the end of the day, there's only certain things we can do that make us productive. And the big aha Mike had was that he was grinding away, but he was coming home not having done the things that actually would move his business forward. That's the biggest thing we need to understand in a market like this. Do not confuse being active with being productive.
So good. That is so good. Yes. We tend to do that, right? As high eyes, as society, as culture. What's the typical answer we give people? Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's going on? Yeah, just staying busy. Subconsciously, we just say that. Staying busy. Oh, you must be doing great. You're staying busy. Not necessarily the case. That's a great story. That's awesome, man. Our time, this has been really amazing today, Matthew. I really appreciate your time. You've had a lot of mic drops during this conversation. I think it's been fantastic, and I think our listeners and our people who are listening are going to grab some great truths from this, and so many things we could talk about. But man, thank you for wrapping that up with those great words of wisdom and an amazing story.
And Brian,
I really
thank you
appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you, Brian, for what you're doing. I love this Realtors of Faith concept. And I know it's been something that, God's really put on your heart, and you're being obedient and carrying it forward. And, I hope you go to bed at night recognizing that God's using you, and I'm seeing the impact nationally of people inspired by your work. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. And as we continue to pray for one another, what God wants to do in my business and your business, I want to be able to get people connected with you. And so whether it's coaching, speaking, can you just give our listeners and viewers just an idea of how to connect with you, and just so they can get this wisdom also?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll put it in the footnotes of the episode. We'll put the link where people can connect us, and by all means, I hope that if someone's come to us from this podcast and they're interested in more information, let me know that that you'd connected with Brian, or you saw this. Brian's doing incredible work, and I want to make sure that we continue to support this podcast, because I think, Brian, I think God's got big plans for this going forward, for sure. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, friend. Hey, and really enjoyed it, man. Have a great day. God bless.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Brian. See ya.
Thanks. See ya.